Yotsuya Kaidan by Kotaro Tanaka. It was during the Ganroku era, in the district of Yotsuya, Samon-den no Machi, lived a man named Tamiya Matazeyamon, who served as a doshin in the elite front guard. Because his eyesight had grown poor, he found his duties increasingly difficult, and he longed to retire. To succeed him and care for his daughter, Oiwa, he resolved to adopt a son-in-law in his stead. Alas, at spring's arrival, when Oiwa turned 21, she contracted smallpox. Her skin peeled away so that her face took on the rough texture of mulberry paper. A blemish clouded her right eye, and her hair curled in an unseemly fashion, leaving her a pitiful spectacle of disfigurement. Owing to his wife's distress over Oiwa's condition, Matazeyamon's companions, Akiyama Choemon and Kondo Rokurobe among them, resolved to find a husband for Oiwa to inherit the Tamiya household. But no one would consent to marry a woman as disfigured as she had become. Then word reached them of a persuasive fellow in Shitaya named Mataichi. When summoned, he promised, "This is delicate, but if you reward me generously, I shall find a fitting son-in-law." Soon he returned with news of a prospective match, a 31-year-old masterless samurai from Setsu province, Iemon. Flattered by Mataichi's praise, saying that though Oiwa's appearance was less than fair, she was a skilled seamstress of gentle disposition, Iemon agreed to preview the bride's household and meet her mother. On August 14th, he paid the bride price of 15 ryo of gold and, through negotiations secured by Mataichi and the head of the guard unit, Miyake Yajibe, married Oiwa. That evening, he took up residence in her home. At the wedding feast, Oiwa's face was concealed behind a screen, turned toward the light so as not to reveal her. Iemon peered and froze in horror at the ruined visage before him. But fearing to lose his new status, he restrained himself and completed the ceremony. A virtuous and industrious bridegroom, Iemon dutifully cared for his wife and her mother, until a year later, Oiwa's mother fell ill and died. Freed from his mother-in-law's watchful eye, Iemon's loathing for Oiwa's deformity grew into bitter resentment. At this time, one Ito Kihei, a corrupt yet capable officer in the same guard unit, desired to be rid of one of his two young mistresses. He remembered Iemon's distaste for his wife and offered, "Take this woman as your mistress, and I will support you for life." Iemon leapt at the chance. Kihei whispered instructions in his ear. The next day, Iemon began to carry away his wife's clothes and possessions, leaving Oiwa alone at home. As night fell, Oiwa, suspecting nothing, slept in an empty house, bereft of her husband's presence. When she did venture out that evening at Kihei's summons, she closed her home behind her and visited Kihei. There, she learned that Iemon had become a gambler and worshipped a temple nun named Bikuni, activities strictly forbidden to his rank. Kihei warned that if this reached the governor's ear, he would be banished, leaving Oiwa destitute. He urged her to persuade Iemon to abandon his vices. Shamed, Oiwa returned home alone and found the house still locked, Iemon absent. Furiously, she sought to take her own life with a razor, but thinking that her death would be blamed on her husband, she cast the blade aside and, like a madwoman, strode off to Kihei's house. There, in Kihei's parlor, she wept venomous accusations. Kihei, ever the pragmatist, convinced her that it would be better to sue for divorce quietly. He promised to arrange her release if she would return her stolen garments. Desperate, she agreed. Once divorced, Oiwa found service as a seamstress in a low-ranking samurai's home in Sanbanjo. Meanwhile, Iemon married Kihei's mistress, Ohana, and lived prosperously with their growing family. At a small wedding feast for Ohana and Iemon, attended by Iemon's friends, Iemon struck a red serpent with a fire poker, banishing it into the night. When he arose that dawn to see his home, a second snake fell from the ceiling. Chilled by the eerie omen, he flung it away. Across the city, Oiwa, now a humble servant, learned of these portents and of Iemon's new life. One evening, a tobacco peddler whispered that the three men, Kihei, Akiyama, Choemon, and Iemon, had conspired to defraud Oiwa and force her from her home so that Ohana might take her place. "Then I know your secret," Oiwa hissed, her disfigured features twisting with rage. The ground trembled beneath her as she chanted curses. Names of Iemon, Kihei, Ohana, and Choemon hissed through her lips. In madness, she hurled pots and pans, scattering the household, and fled into the night. Iemon and his household soon learned of her disappearance. He felt a cold dread, though at last he comforted himself that no obstacle remained to his fortune. Months later, on the night of July 18th, Oiwa's ghost, her hair wild, her face pale, appeared before Iemon's home, calling his name 3 times and vanishing. At her spectral summons, Iemon discharged his unloaded pistol, but the blast terrified his 4-year-old daughter into a fatal seizure. By August 15th, she was dead. One by one, the children in Iemon's home fell victim to unseen terrors. His eldest daughter, Some, felt a phantom suitor's touch. His son, Gonprachiro, died after beholding his late sister beckoning from the garden, and youngest Kikune perished on September 18th. Iemen sought refuge at temples and shrines, Shoju-senji in Zoshigaya, Yakushiji at Zojoshi, but the hauntings persisted. His newborn son by Ohana died in April. Ohana herself followed in May. On June 28th, caught in a sudden storm, Iemon fell from the roof while repairing his battered eaves. His hip shattered, a wound behind his ear festered with maggots. On July 11th, alone and infirm, he succumbed to infection. The Tamisha family line, once restored by Iemon's adopted heir, Gongoromon, collapsed in madness and destruction. Successive heads fell to disease or terror. The Tamisha estate was abandoned, its mansion christened the Mansion of Monsters, a den of supernatural lore that drew curious onlookers to its ruin.